My brother said, "This table's for family only. You sit by the trash can." They all laughed. But with one tap on my phone, I ended his mortgage and his smirk. I am 34, and for as long as I can remember, I have been treated like the family outsider. That label did not come from strangers or colleagues, but from my own parents and my younger brother, Ryan, who is 31. Growing up, it was always obvious who the favorite was. Ryan was the golden child, the athletic star, the one with endless charisma, the boy who could do no wrong. Meanwhile, I was the quiet one. I loved computers, books, and building things instead of playing sports or throwing parties. Ryan made varsity football, and my parents threw a huge celebration. When I got into MIT with a full scholarship, all I heard was a flat, "That's nice," before they shifted the conversation back to Ryan's next big game. That became the story of my life. Ryan got a lavish wedding completely funded by my parents. When I graduated and landed my first job at a startup, my parents didn't even bother to show up to my ceremony. My mom's Facebook overflowed with Ryan's wedding photos, while my graduation got buried with a one-line post that no one noticed. What they never bothered to see was that I had a gift for money. While Ryan spent his college years partying on my parents' dime, I worked internships, took side jobs, and taught myself how to invest. Back when Bitcoin was barely known, I put in what little I had. When the startup I worked for got bought out by Google, my stock options alone were worth more than my parents had made in a decade. But I never flaunted it. I drove a beat-up Honda Civic, rented a small apartment, and kept a low profile. They assumed I was barely surviving. In reality, I was building quiet wealth, properties, investments, and security they couldn't even imagine. Ryan, on the other hand, struggled. He had a decent job as a sales manager, but he and his wife Sarah were constantly broke. 2 kids, a house they couldn't afford, and a mountain of debt. My parents were always bailing him out. Thousands of dollars for bills, car repairs, and random emergencies. Every family dinner, I had to sit there listening to their endless praise for Ryan, while my own life was treated like background noise. I should have walked away years ago, but I stayed. Maybe out of stubborn hope that one day they would see me for who I really was. Then came the call from Ryan 3 months ago. He rarely called unless he needed something, and sure enough, he did. His mortgage was crushing him, and he asked if I could help. The way he said it made my blood boil, as if I had nothing important going on, as if my only purpose was to rescue him. When I looked into his finances, what I found made my jaw tighten. He and Sarah were neck-deep in debt, credit cards maxed out, car loans behind, and 3 months late on their mortgage. My parents had already given him $15,000 earlier that year. Money they never even offered me. That was the moment I decided I would step in. But not the way he expected. I bought his mortgage, paid the $180,000 balance in full, and took it over. Suddenly, he was paying me every month, completely clueless that his own brother now owned his home. For 2 months he praised me, telling everyone I was finally being useful. My parents actually looked proud of me for once. Then Thanksgiving arrived. I walked into my parents' home, and the table was already set. 9 people, 8 chairs. Everyone had a spot except me. Ryan looked at me with that familiar smirk and said, loud enough for all to hear, "Sorry, this table's for family only. You sit by the trash can." The room fell into laughter. My uncle chuckled. Sarah tried to hide her giggles. Even my parents let out a laugh. They thought it was a joke. But it wasn't. My place was beside the trash. So I sat there, quietly, my plate balanced on my lap. And while they talked and laughed, I pulled out my phone. With a few taps, I triggered the clause on Ryan's mortgage. It accelerated the loan, $180,000 due in 30 days. Otherwise, foreclosure. The house he laughed at me from would soon be gone. The room was buzzing with laughter while I sat near the trash can, acting like their joke didn't get to me. But deep inside, something in me snapped. It wasn't just about the chair or the words, "not family." It was about years of being treated as less, as if I didn't belong to the very people who raised me. Every dismissive comment, every overlooked achievement, Every time I was made to feel like a guest in my own family came rushing back at that moment. And while they passed around turkey and wine, I sat quietly tapping my phone, knowing that I held a power none of them could even imagine. By the time they were on their second round of dessert, I had already finished what I needed to do. The mortgage clause was triggered. A formal demand for full payment would be in Ryan's mailbox by Monday morning. He had no idea, none at all. He was still sitting at the head of the table, bragging about his plans to host Christmas at his place, talking about remodeling the kitchen, talking about how things were finally looking up. If only he knew that his house was already slipping through his fingers. At one point, my mother glanced at me sitting away from everyone, and instead of looking concerned or sorry, she smirked like it was some innocent family joke. That look told me everything I needed to know. They didn't think of me as one of them. To them, I was the extra piece that didn't fit. And in that moment, I realized I didn't care about their approval anymore. I didn't need it. I had spent my life waiting for validation that was never going to come. But what I did have was control over my own destiny, and, ironically, over my brother's too. When dinner ended, they barely noticed as I picked up my plate, took my jacket, and left early. No one tried to stop me. No one asked me if I was okay. It was as if I really was just a stranger who happened to show up at their gathering. But what they didn't know was that I was walking out with a quiet satisfaction. They had laughed at me, dismissed me, and called me trash. But by the time Christmas rolled around, that laughter would be replaced with panic. Sure enough, the following week, I got the first call. Ryan's voice was shaking, his words stumbling. "Bro, I got this letter. It says we owe the full balance or we lose the house. What's going on?" I kept my tone calm, cold even, as I replied, "That's how the agreement works. You thought it was just monthly payments, but you signed without reading the fine print. You owe me." He tried to laugh it off at first, tried to convince himself I was joking, but when I stayed silent, the panic in his voice grew. Within days, the calls multiplied. Ryan called me dozens of times. Sarah called too, her voice breaking, begging me to help them. Even my parents started calling, demanding to know what I had done. "You can't do this to family," my mother shouted over the phone, her voice filled with the same fake righteousness she used whenever she defended Ryan. I simply answered, "Family? You mean the kind that makes me sit by the trash can because I'm not one of you? That kind of family?" The line fell silent. It didn't take long for word to spread through the extended family. My aunts and cousins began whispering about how Ryan and Sarah might lose their home. Some blamed me. Others quietly said they couldn't believe how reckless Ryan had been with money. For the first time ever, the spotlight was on him, not for his achievements, but for his failures. And I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of relief. Christmas came and went, and this time, there was no invitation for me. But I knew from neighbors that the gathering wasn't the same. Ryan spent most of the day in the corner, arguing with Sarah while my parents tried to act like everything was normal. The smiles and laughter that had filled Thanksgiving were gone, replaced with nervous glances and whispers. By January, the bank was already preparing foreclosure notices. Ryan's perfect life, the one my parents always put on a pedestal, was crumbling before their eyes. And all I had to do was sit back and watch. And you know what the best part was? I didn't feel guilty, not even for a second. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. Not because they finally gave me credit, but because I no longer needed it. Their approval didn't matter. Their laughter didn't matter. What mattered was that I took back my power. I was no longer the family outsider sitting by the trash can. I was the one who held the strings, and my brother's smirk was finally gone.